Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. Special treat for you. A long time. I mean, long time. I've known this lady my whole life, Barbara Heckerman. You'll enjoy this. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. This week we have my lifelong friend I've known since I was a little boy, Barbara Heckerman. How are you, Barbara?
I'm fine, Will.
My first English cocker that I fell in love with was yours. Do you remember that?
Well, there you go. I've been lucky in the breed. I've had a lot of nice ones.
Yeah, Trumpet's Friday's child.
Yep, Timmy.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a nice little cocker.
Yeah,
very typey.
I fell in love with him when I was a little boy, and that's made me want to get English cockers.
Yeah. Well, you went to a good source with Ann Eldridge.
Yeah, sure was. A lot of fun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So you're well?
Well, getting there. I've had kind of a rough spate the last 2 years, health-wise, but
okay, I didn't know that.
I'm somewhat mobile.
Well,
me and my walker, we go everywhere.
Well, I know. I saw I saw a picture of the English cocker specials this weekend in Michigan. So,
yeah,
I knew you were here somewhere,
hanging out on the fringe. I said, "Thank God for Facebook. I can keep track of all my friends."
There you go. All right. First question.
Yes.
Tell me how you got started in this sport of dogs.
Well, my mother wanted poodles, and so we had a few, not any terribly good ones, learned the hard way.
What year was this? How old were you, Barbara?
Oh, I don't know.
Approximately.
I don't know. I was probably 14 or 15.
All right. That's close enough. Okay.
Yeah. Since I'm now 70, that goes back a while. A long while. But anyway, then she sort of got disenchanted with poodles and all the folderol involved and people selling mediocre dogs as show dogs. So she moved on to an interest in Dobermans. And we got our first dogs from Pat and Judy Denier, Toledo's here in town. Yeah. And then that got to be a bit much size-wise for us to deal with. So she went down to Min Pins, and that was the first breed that I showed and finished and got a group on. So I was hooked.
Now, how old were you when you first started showing dogs in?
Probably 1964 or 63.
Okay.
Long time.
All right, so where did we go from there?
Well, I got intrigued showing the Min Pin with other breeds in the toy group, and I really was attracted to Silky Terriers. Unfortunately, the ones that were around our area had very sharp temperaments, shall we say. They were cute little dogs, but when the owner handler, who was a professional, would bend over to try and pick one up, they'd come up the lead snapping at him.
Yikes.
Not the best promotion for him.
No.
And then at a show up in Michigan, I, as usual, went over to watch them because there was a few entered. And Lou DeRoster from Bell River, Ontario was there with his Bonine Zarunda Chieftain, his son, Gabby, and a little bitch. And he says, "Can you help me?" And I said, "Well, one question. Do yours bite?" At which point he looked at me askance, took me over to his car, and put two of them in my arms and proceeded to wash my face. I said, "I want one." I really liked the breed. And that began a good long friendship and co-breeding and learning.
Mm-hmm.
So
we had a lot more than that, Barbara. We saw all the cockers and all the showing. And
oh, I know. Well, as I sort of got older and started showing more, I had Cocker friends that asked me to show for them, Jess and Carolyn Pfeiffer down in Leesburg, Virginia. They were the Tuppence people.
Yep.
And I special Tuppence Friday's child for them, the little blue dog that you like.
And that was about 1976, 77, right?
Okay, so it was a while after I got started with the Silkies. But I had Marksman, my blue roan English cocker, SoHo Marksman of Windcrest, which I co-bred from a litter with Lynn Clark, which was SoHo Kennels down in Virginia. And he was my pick puppy out of the litter. And we had Jean Glasson, who was Maple Lawn Kennels, evaluate the litter for Lynn. And she hated him. I thought, well, I like him. So she picked out 2 puppies to go to Lynn, a really pretty little black and white bitch, and a big, ugly, sloppy blue roan dog that's eyes sort of bled at you when you looked at him. Oh, yeah. But he was sound and big. And I thought, yeah, so. And so when Lynn got him, she says, what is this? And I said, well, it was Jean's choice. So she wouldn't have been mine. And she saw pictures of the rest of the 4 that I had left in the litter. And she says, what about that light blue dog? I said, well, he was my pick. She says, can you keep my name on him? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I was still in juniors at that point. So I was like 16. And he did a fair amount of winning with me on him and was a beautiful dog as far as structure. He could have had a little prettier head, but dead sound and so willing and just a really super little dog to have. And he ended up producing 25 American champions and just with moderate use. And it opened the door to a lot of other people and a lot of other dogs. And then I sort of branched out into Springers and a lot of other toy breeds and hounds. So
you're sort of grazing over some of this stuff on me.
A lot. You want to hear all that?
I do. That's why we're here. Like Lynn, like Lynn Clark. I actually had dogs from Lynn Clark as well. I had a couple of 3 SoHo dogs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like I'd like to know. All these people probably had something to do with you and Cockers.
Well, Lynn was always interested in around the ring and a lot of reach and drive in her dogs. And she forgave A-frame fronts, which I learned to detest, having to crank them into position all the time. Right. But they used them. And I told her one day, I said, I want a Dunelm type cocker with SoHo movement. And she looked at me and she said, that's very hard to do. I said, I know, but that's what I want. And I think that's when you start learning to make breeding choices. Mm-hmm. And make the best of the lines you're working with. And I love the SoHo dogs. I still do. I mean, they offered a lot, very cockery type. And she kept basically 2 types within her kennel. She started with on time, which sometimes tended to be a little racier, more leg, more angle. And she had another side from on time, which were little solid type, English type cockers, very moderate, big fronts and big rib cages. And I thought, why can't you get the running gear on that type? And that's been sort of my lifelong endeavor in doing whatever I've done in the breed as far as my own breeding, which is limited. But I have a picture in my mind's eye of what I want a cocker to look like. And I've taken that over to the few times I've judged, and I try to think that they fit the standard. I'm sort of a bug about the word of the standard than anything I look at.
Well, you kind of need to be.
Well, so I think you do.
You were handling dogs a lot, though, when I started to know you.
Right.
I knew you, again, back when you had Timmy. And so I think that was late 70s. Because
he was
Was he late 70s?
Well, he would have been after I had retired marksman quite a while. So, I was just starting out. And I never really tried for a handler's license in AKC. And I'm really sniping here. But I saw too many people that were licensed that I didn't think took care of their dogs or did the right things with them. And I've never been one to join the games involved in the sport. I don't like them. I don't think it does the fancy any favors. So, I'm kind of a stick in the mud from that standpoint.
That's why
I
we
just-
love you, Barbara.
I just like good dogs. I don't care where they come from or who has them. You know, if it fills my eye for what I've learned about breeds, that's what I try and reward in my own mind. I love watching a collection of any breed
Yeah.
and finding a middle ground. I think it's learning all the time.
When did you start showing for Eugene? For what?
The first dog I showed for him was a dog called Wittersham's Bongo. And that was after he'd been in the country 2 or 3 years. Dick Becker had the dog originally and couldn't get majors on him because he was a little lower to the ground, beautifully put together, beautiful shoulder and upper arm, but a little long and a little bit low. And he was the sire of one of my favorite cockers, Wittersham's Emblem, who was a little red dog that Eugene came up to me at a national. He says, "Would you consider showing my dogs?" And Emblem was probably 6.5 months old. Jesse Dyke, who was Dycroft Kennels, did the sweepstakes that year. I think it was in upstate New York somewhere. And I really was taken with this little red dog because little cocker package, beautiful extension in front, and sound as a dollar coming and going, top line like a rock. And I thought, that's a cocker package. And that still fills my eye.
I still remember, I'm pretty sure, I think I watched you go back and show with him. It was either him or what was his call name?
Topper.
Who was Oscar?
Oscar was an English import that followed Topper. He brought him in after he was a breed winner at Crufts.
Okay.
And he
I
had
watched Nigel give you a best in show with one of them. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, up a Thousand Island. That was Oscar.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That picture hangs in my living room.
I remember that.
He was a beautiful dog. I mean, the quality just oozed out of him. He had some physical things that weren't necessarily 100% perfect, but he was beautiful. I mean, probably one of my favorite memories was showing him at the Baltimore Kennel Club, and Tons Lehtinen from Norway or Sweden was judging the breed, and he was a very important person in Europe judging cockers, and his wife was very involved with them. He came down the line of specials, and he stopped dead when he got to Oscar, looked at him and walked over and bent down and touched him on the nose, just ran his hand on his muzzle, looked at me and said, "Thank you." Turned back, went down, continued the rest of the line. And I just thought, well, that was neat. You know?
Yeah, for
I was
sure.
kind of going out on a limb. What if he fell over? But he gave him a beautiful breed out there. And years later, gave me a Canadian national cocker specialty with a great grandson.
So what was Oscar's full name?
Was Briansbrook High Society.
High Society, okay.
Yeah. And people that bred him, Brian and Brenda Fosbrook, were lovely people. Eugene was nice enough to take me over to the UK a couple of times, and I got to meet them and saw Oscar's mother. And, you know, it was really a nice educational thing to do. We visited several top kennels, and it was really an education. Over there, I think the families of cockers were each positive in their own regards, like the Lochranza dogs, the Misburn dogs, the Quetadine dogs. All those produced top animals. And the smart breeder, which they were, all of them, used each other's dogs, not necessarily to incorporate everything, but to touch on and bring in the qualities they offer. Anymore, so few people maintain a kennel, a family of dogs that aren't outcrossed here, outcrossed there, outcrossed here. And it's like, you know, they want to touch on the quality and they want it, but then what they do with the next generation isn't always good, or it doesn't always pan out. I don't know.
That's interesting.
So I think that's true in all breeds. I was surprised when I did a seminar for the Michigan Sporting Dogs a few years ago, and the flat coat gentleman, Doug Windsor, came up as I was talking to a couple of other people, and he says, "You know, I've never heard that term, breeding into a family of dogs." And I looked at him and I thought, isn't that just the common denominator in everything? It kind of took me aback. And I made him a decent judge watching him, you know. So I don't know.
Well, that's true, because you do, like I've talked to different people, obviously, and they'll talk about breeding into this family, or they like this family. They always use that term. It's
Right.
interesting.
Well, that to me is what you do it for. If you're breeding, you make a family of dogs that give you overall the qualities that to you make you the breed. There's always a front you could fix, or an angle of shoulder, or maybe a stronger thigh muscle or something. And if you can go to a family that has maintained that in their base stock, so you can feel comfortable of hopefully picking up those characteristics you're going out to and bring it back into your own family. And sometimes it takes a couple generations to make it all come together.
True.
Or more.
Yeah. So you how long did you show for Eugene for? Eugene
Forever.
Forever.
I have a very bad time frame reference on things. I specialed several dogs for him. The last one I had, not that I didn't campaign because I ended up pulling my glute muscles in both legs, was an English dog, Quetadine Copperglow, who was the top cocker in England for several years. And his breeder was a lovely lady. And she agreed to lease him to Eugene because he wanted to use him, but he also wanted to show him in this country for what he felt was a really good cocker.
I don't think I've ever seen that dog.
It was a brief career because I hurt myself showing him and I couldn't show him anymore. Yeah. He went best of opposite a national under Sandy Olson with Cindy Hassler showing him.
Okay, Cindy. Yes.
And then he went back, after his time was done here, but he was a beautiful dog. Very coppery, big ribs, pretty head.
So did you stop showing dogs at that point professionally?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I showed lightly a few years after that, but I just got to the point where my motor skills were deteriorating and I couldn't run. So, I had both my knees done, and my surgeon said, "What do you want to get out of this?" I said, "I want to be able to walk at least and show my silkies. I have no illusions of sailing around rings anymore." And he says, "Well, you'll be able to do that." I said, "Okay." And I went after that, and I thought, my cane isn't working anymore, so now I have a walker. And I thought, there's obviously no way I'm going to get back in the ring and do this. I judged the Cocker National in the States in 2015, I think, and that was wonderful.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed doing that. That was a nice entry and some lovely dogs, and I was quite happy with that.
Did you have aspirations to judge?
Long, involved story.
That's okay.
When I started, I decided that when I was not able to show, and I gathered all my stuff to fill out for AKC and all the dogs I'd finished and all the dogs I'd bred. And I sent myself into such a fit of depression because I thought, these dogs, most of them are dead. And so were my clients. And I thought, I don't care. I can't do this. I can't keep going on this. And it really hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It didn't stop the interest. And then with all the hoops that the AKC was putting on potential judges and the political scene that was involved in that, I thought, I have never liked a brown nose. I will not go through the right hoops. I will not go to the right cocktail parties. That's not me. I just love the dogs. Mm-hmm. And I like good ones. So I don't need to judge.
That's such a shame because we've lost out on so many potential great judges because of those hoops and the time involved, and it's not getting better. I mean, the more people I talk to, the more people are soured on the whole thing, and that's sad. That is sad. It's taken the joy out of doing it. I still love the specialties. The last few years, the last dogs that I showed for Eugene, or anybody else for that matter, if it was what I felt a really good quality animal, I didn't show it week in, week out to finish it. I saved it for specialties. And there we were lucky enough to show to breeder judges. And that's the list we usually came up with as a parent club. And those are opinions that I value. And they did well. So So it's disheartening because I was talking to a friend, a mutual friend of ours, but I won't say their name because I don't want to get them in any kind of hot water.
I'll
But
go ahead.
no, but they were talking about applying to judging, and I think they already had some breeds, and they applied, and the kennel club said, well, they needed more. And they said, well, I've given you 50 years. What more do you want?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
They treat everybody the same. And not that I think it should be a special award or a gift, because there's a lot of people that have been involved a long time that are kind of clueless, and they're nice people. I said, I always had two lists. I had a dinner list made up of judges that I would like having dinner with and enjoy them. But would I send them to buy a dog for me? No.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember being in a show one time, and that goes through my head of the panel of judges. Which one of these would you choose to buy a dog for you? And I came up with the ring steward, which was Scott McNair.
There you go, Scotty. You do a good job.
Yeah, he'd buy me a good dog.
And I thoroughly enjoyed my time in Canada when I was living up there and working for Dick Mean. He has some beautiful dogs.
Yes, we have to talk about that. That's good. I'm glad you brought that up.
You're right over it, didn't I?
Yeah.
Some of my best friends that I made were up in Canada, and I still feel that way. They're family.
Well, that's how I got to know you. I got to know you through the stalkers. And I think Mr. Burke had a dog, too, that you sold him.
Mm-hmm.
Michael.
Little black and white tick dog.
Michael, yeah. I used to take him and wander around the dog show with him. But you had bred him. So.
Yeah, Sonny. Or not Sonny, no.
Michael was his name.
Yeah, it could be. He was a little light blue dog. And after I sold him to Bill, he got me on a good day when I just wanted to get rid of all my dogs because I had so many there at the farm. And I thought, he had a chance to go out and be a show dog with someone that had the breed and liked the breed. Yeah. Be gone. Have a nice life.
And he did. He had a good life.
And he did. Yeah. Bill kept saying, I don't know how you could have sold me that dog. I said, I've often wondered that myself, but he ended up in a good spot.
He was a lovely dog.
Yeah. Nice little cocker.
Yep. So we'll go back to Dick. I'm sorry. Dick and John.
That's okay. Memory lane.
Yeah.
No, Dick asked me to come up, and he had bought an old English sheepdog.
What year was that? Can you
I don't know. You keep asking me years. I don't know, Will. It's the deep, dark recesses of my tiny mind. He and John bought an old English dog from a client of Jerry Edwards. And he was a handsome dog, big dog. Always kept in full coat. Well, he would not breed a bitch. He didn't think that was nice. He wouldn't do that. So Dick never showed him, and that was the end of that. But they thought I had an interest in Old English, which I like a good one, like I like a good one of anything. But do I want them? No. So I ended up keeping 2 or 3 and cloaked there for John. And I was interested in the Borzoi. I had always loved the breed to look at, and they were nice to deal with. They were a very interesting breed. And just, it just wasn't for me. 75 dogs in an unheated barn was not my idea of a good time after a couple of years.
How long were you there for?
3 years, I think, 2 or 3. Yeah. But made a lot of good friends, had a lot of fun, learned a lot.
I'm sure, yeah. I remember seeing you with the Borzoi as well. So,
yeah.
Now, where did we go from there after you left?
Oh, I don't know. I worked for Jim Lehman, who's a Chihuahua handler, for a long time. And I really grew to like that breed a lot. They're tough little dogs, and they're really sweet. And a lot of good ones went through Jim's hands because he was sort of Mr. Chihuahua down here in the States. So I got a good working knowledge of them and a lot of other toy breeds. I mean, if I like a breed, I've enjoyed having them. I mean, I had a really good Poolie for Diane Gibson up in Minnesota that she got from a top breeder. The breeder took him back and got him in cords. Pebbletree A. Aldash. I always remember him. Nicest mind. Talk about a good herding guard type dog. you'd be walking him at the hotel and someone would come out of a room down the way and Dash would walk over very quietly and stand between you and this person that was way down the laneway. And he never moved and he never growled. But if they walked towards you, that dog grew 2 inches and just stared at them. And I had a friend named Nancy McGarvey, who you probably knew,
Yes,
that had
of course.
Irish setters. She's an old dear
And
friend.
poolies. She had poolies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she went and managed a poolie kennel out in California her last few years. But she helped me a lot on conditioning the coat and the cords and everything. And I was telling her about Dash's technique of getting between people. And she says, yes, and if they come up directly to you, he would have been on their shoulders. You never would have heard a growl. He'd just pin them. So that's the nature of the breed. They're very smart and very much tuned into their surroundings. And I had a lot of respect for that. So that was kind of a fun breed to explore.
I love all the names you're bringing up. Nancy McGarvey.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about Nancy in years, but she taught me how to build a top line and an angle on our setter.
Uh-huh.
She had good hands.
She's a clever girl. I really like Nancy a lot. She's a good friend.
Yeah, she spent a lot of time with Garrett, so I got to see them both. So.
Yeah. She came over at one show I was at in the Georgia, showing one of my red puppies, I think by Oscar. And my little pet, I'd like a pet that quality. It's kind of nice, isn't it? I said, that just proves the point. We always show our good dogs to each other. We don't really care what the judge thinks. As long as our friends approve of them, we sort of like their opinion. So.
Alice and I went to the Florida circuit with Garrett, and we followed Nancy down. Garrett followed Nancy in her truck. Oh my God, the two of them. You had to close your eyes sometimes while driving.
Yes, but Garrett was a gem too.
Yeah,
really miss him.
So over the years, tell me the people that have made have been almost like mentors to you in the sport.
Well, we've covered quite a few already.
Yeah.
Someone that I've always been fascinated with his judging and his humor, although I don't know him, is Wayne Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
I think he is so bright, and his
Don't tell him this. Oh my God, I'm not going to let him watch this now.
Well, I never really made a friend of him. I mean, in passing, that was about it. I showed to him, I think, only once.
I know him pretty well.
What?
I know him pretty well.
Oh, there you go. No, I know you had done a podcast with him, but no, he's the person that I always enjoyed his take on things.
Yeah.
And just really good.
I learn something every week from him. We talk every week. I learn something every week from Wayne.
Yeah. He did an article. Basically, it wasn't a poem, but it was almost set up that way about old judges that are famous and well thought of and their takes on the breed. And he went through the sporting group, and Alva would have cringed at this one. And I thought, that's wonderful. And I can never find it again to save it.
Well, I'm going to remind him of that. See, but he's hard because he writes these things. He wrote this one called A Dog Named Red, and I had more impact on me than him because I remembered it forever. He forgot some of the words, so I started filling in the words and we rewrote it.
Yep. I always said in this whole sport, you remember the eccentric judges, whether they were good ones or not, but you enjoyed them. And you would remember the people that spiked your interest in breeds and taught you. I hung on the side of a ring up in Meadowbrook, New Jersey. It was a racetrack of all places. And there was a huge entry of Welch Springers. And I was watching them because we never got that many out our way. I only saw one or two. And I'd read the standard, and I was standing and watching, and Laddie Carswell came over, Candy's father. He says, what are you doing watching these? And I said, trying to learn. Well, he gave me a tutorial on Welch's that still sticks in my mind. And those to me are the gems of it. Sitting ringside at Warrenton, Virginia with Bobby Braithwaite, and he's talking about cockers, and he launches into a tirade about having this liver-roan dog that he had of Mrs. Dodge's, and he took him up to the handler because he worked in the kennels there. That's that long ago. And showed him to him, and he said, well, I'll take him out. And he said, he butchered its coat. All my hand stripping, he cut it off. He butchered it. I went to Mrs. Dodge and I said, you give that fool another one of my dogs and I quit. Okay.
Do we know who it was?
No,
Okay.
I have no idea. I'm not naming names, but I just thought he was so put off by the way the man butchered the coat.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I mean, I've thought about it long and hard with all the current tendency in English cockers to peel them down into schnauzer jackets with the dust ruffle. I don't like that. I mean, I know how to do it, but I won't. And my solids, I always took great pleasure in pulling down by hand. That's why my hand's all crippled. But having the top coat have a length to it and shiny. And once you get them pulled down, you don't have to do the scut work every week.
Right. Once they're in condition, it's hard. It's easy to keep them in condition. Easier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the initial pull down can be torturous, but if you wait till the coat's ready to move, it's fine.
I got guilted into hand stripping dogs when I was about 14 or 15 by one Mr. L. Garrett Lambert because I was trimming something, and he walked by me and he said, "Hack away, William," and then I went over to him and he showed me how I should be doing it.
Well, I walked up on Garrett at a show in Michigan while he was peeling out the undercoat on a Cavalier before they got recognized fully here. And I said, why are you doing that? You're using a knife. Don't you want to hand pull it? Dead coat has to come out, was his answer. And I said, but don't you want to pull it out? Dead coat has to come out. And he's wailing away with his knife on him. And I think, I'm not going to ask you again. And he just had the best time throwing that in my face.
Yeah.
No.
So I have another question for you then, because we touched on this earlier, why you didn't become licensed. What advice would you give if somebody young came to you and said they wanted to be a professional dog handler and you couldn't talk them out of it? What advice would you give them?
Well, keep your medical in place, your insurance, because you will have parts that have to be replaced if you do it right. Your knees are going to be gone, your hands are going to be gone, and eventually your mind will leave as well.
These are good selling points.
Exactly. Have a good vehicle that's well made and in good condition because you're going to put thousands of miles on it. And it's just, have good clients. Don't make friends of them all. Keep it business in a lot of cases, but make friends of the ones that you'll treasure for the rest of your life.
And that's good.
So,
do you have any advice for people that want to judge if you can't talk them out of it?
Well, no, I think people that have something to offer should take a stab at it, whether it starts at your own breed's sweepstakes judging or something. Get your feet wet in it because it's real easy, and we're all guilty of it, is ringside judging. Mm-hmm. And I know some judges feel they don't have to examine a dog totally. They can do it just by their eye. And yes, you'll find a dog that suits your eye. You still have to know how it's made. Mm-hmm. There was a cocker bitch that did a lot of winning, and I really liked her. And then I got my hands on her, and I thought, oh, okay, never mind. And just move along. And you just sort of put that in your card file, which is what I call, whatever's left of my mind. And I try and log in what I've seen and what I've felt. And it's interesting, I put up for winner's dog at the American National, kind of a plain red and white dog that had a beautiful play of shoulder and upper arm with a big prowy front piece and depth of body with proper flattening for his elbows. And just going over him, he was textbook. He wasn't fancy. He wasn't stylish particularly. Two of my least favorite words in cockers. You can have style by an arch of a neck and a carriage. It doesn't have to be exaggerated.
Right. I'm losing your folk. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm talking and tipping my phone. I'm not used to doing this.
From that TV show, I could say.
Well, that's okay. The best way. I always wanted a fence to peer over. No, I think that when you get an animal like that, if you're basing your own involvement in breeding, you find basics. And once they start being distorted through all the caricature breeding and the fruit salad pedigrees and that, and you're trying to find dogs you feel would be worthy of putting into a gene pool, you reward them. And unfortunately, I think in judging, you have today entries that don't ever come close to that.
Yeah.
They're not bad dogs, but they're not really positive in their virtues. They're just sort of like bits and pieces. And if you can do it as a judge and be diplomatic and not hurt people's feelings when you tell them their child is ugly, you know, it's a hard thing to do, but you have to master it.
Mm-hmm.
We were sitting ringside at the Heart of Michigan specialty, and a woman came up to Marissa Clark, who had judged the first day's specialty. And this woman went on, and what didn't you like about my dog? I thought, oh, here we go. And she nicely told her, well, I obviously like the other one better. She said, but I can't remember why I made that decision. I just did on time I had in the ring with it. Well, the woman wouldn't let it go. And she's on and on. And then she embarked on her other breed when she found out that Marissa was licensed for working dogs, and just sort of beat on her. It was like, God, woman, you know, it's just not done. And I think as a judge, you have to be prepared for that kind of mentality that's brought to you. And that's sad because no one really wants to learn. They want to teach you why their dog was better. Well, you paid for my opinion. My opinion was the other one stood in front of yours, you know. Doesn't mean yours was awful or I wouldn't like it on another day, but today the other one was better. You have to have courage of your convictions when you judge. And if you don't do it.
That's right.
And you keep learning as you go on. I mean, you talk to people in the breed. And as I say, I've always been a dog junkie. So I've always talked to people that have the breed and talked to the ones that I thought were the good ones, whether they ended up at the top of the line or not, to find out if I was right in my interpretation of what I was supposed to be seeing and what I was seeing. And it's like a challenging game all the time. You never stop learning about dogs and stop learning about breeds and breed histories. And I think a lot of people don't bother with that part. Why are they what they are?
Right. You should have judged, Barbara.
They might roll me up to a ring someday and let me point, but you know. No, I love dogs and I love good ones. I love some of the heads on the beagles that you've shown, those faces and the packaging and top lines and just their ease of going. And I think you'd like that too, or you wouldn't have them. You wouldn't be showing those.
It's amazing when I think about all the people that influenced me, and you are one of those people. You had that part of my beginning where I would see you all the time. And I always went to watch you. I always went to watch you show dogs. So.
Well, I'm going to say something to you which will probably hurt your feelings, but one of my fondest memories of you is Alan Chambers and I went up to Sault Ste. Marie for shows decades ago. It's when you were a child. And sorry, I dropped it. My hand's getting numb. As we were driving back all those long hours, we're sort of noticing the countryside and whatnot. And he made some comment, and what I heard was William's growing. I said, yeah, he's gotten taller. And he says, what are you talking about? I said, Will Alexander. He says, I'm talking about the trilliums growing over there by that tree. They're really coming up. Well, mind shift. We've laughed about that. Trilliums are growing. I've loved you forever, Will. You're just part of that.
That's hilarious.
Oh, well.
Okay, one more question.
Yes.
If you were to meet the 20-year-old Barbara right now, is there any advice you'd give Barbara?
Go back to school and do something that you could make a living at and enjoy this in perspective. Because if you make it your whole life and suddenly you can't do it anymore, it's pretty devastating.
Yeah.
You know? And I'll never stop loving good dogs or going and watching them and putting my hands on them. That's just me. I got a new silky puppy this year, even though Jan says, we don't need another dog. We're downsizing. I want to move to Florida. And I felt so much.
I could hear that in her voice when you said that.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear it in my voice, really?
Never mind. But my silkies have dwindled into ancient and on their way out probably the last 10 years. I had a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and they've been dying off. And I had fallen in love with this litter of puppies that a lady up in Saskatchewan was raising, and she kept doing clips on Facebook, and I'm thinking, God, that's a pretty litter. And I liked the dog's sire. Peggy Beisel had given him a puppy group and came back and told me how wonderful this puppy was, that she hoped she was right, because she said, it looks like something you could have bred. And I thought, oh, hope it is. And I liked that dog so much. She had a good mother. And I approached her at the National in October. Wait, was it October?
It was just this last June.
Okay, in June. We drove 14 hours to Oklahoma City. Jan says, we can make it. I said, okay, fine. And I saw her adult dog and a couple of her younger ones. And I said, if you would consider placing one of your two bitches in that litter with me, I would love to have her. And I said, if you want to take her back and breed her, that's fine. I just want a young one coming up, because mine are all dying off. And I would be devastated if I didn't have any. I mean, the silkies have turned out to be my heart. I love the cockers, but as far as living with and dealing with, I prefer the mind of the silkies, their brightness, their toughness, but they're still sweet. And I want to live with that. So she nicely sent me a bitch from the litter, and I love her. She's wonderful. She got the funniest temperament. She is tough as nails, and then she melts. And I thought, I can live with this for a long time. And that'll be my last dog, probably.
I'll never know.
I pretty much do.
Let me see Jan. I know she's there. Hi, Jan.
Hi, dear.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, thank God for Jan, or I wouldn't be here. I mean, I've really had some weird health things going on the last couple of years. So,
Well, I'm so glad you gave me this time.
oh, I'm glad you nudged me into it, because I didn't know what it was going to be or what it was going to take, or if you just let me rattle.
No, oh my God, you brought back so many memories. It was so great. I love it. I love you. So
I love you too.
oh, thank you.
You know,
All
I've
right.
just been so pleased at your success with what you've done. I couldn't be prouder.
Thanks. Okay, stop.
I still got such a healthy glow all of a sudden.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to Jan and what you guys were doing. And thank you so much for doing this for me.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Told you. Thanks, Barbara. It was so good seeing you and hearing all those stories. So many memories came flooding back. If you like what you're seeing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. If you want to find out what's happening in Will's world, go to willalexander.net. Any messages, send to dogshowtips@gmail.com. Take care, guys. Till next time.